Welcome everyone to EIP Editing Office Hour, meeting number 73. This will include both EIP and ERC's PRs for review. Thank you, Sam Wilson, for joining us here today. On agenda, we have a few final last call review and a bunch of proposals that may require force merge and a few draft proposals to look into. So let's begin with the final proposal.
Sure thing. Just warning you all now, this will be a bit of a short call for me. Probably going to end at 12:30. All right, so what's going on here? Signature verifiers. Interface for the verification of signatures by addressless keys. Okay. Last call deadline has passed. Let's go take a look at this discussions to link. Nothing recent, so good enough for me. All right. So, externally owned accounts, EOA, can send messages with their associated private keys. Additionally, RC 1271 defines them for signature verification by smart accounts such as multisig. In both cases, the identity of the signer is an Ethereum address. It refers to standard to extend this concept of signer description signer verification. Two keys that do not have an Ethereum identity of their own. Okay. Okay, that makes sense. With the development of account abstraction, there's an increasing need for non-Ethereum signature verification. Cryptographic algorithms besides the natively supported SIG-P256K1 are being used for controlling. Yep. R1, RSA keys. Okay. Just deploy the ERC-1271 compatible contracts for each key individually. This becomes expensive as account tries to separate the account address from the key that controls them, giving instead using a small number of verifier contracts that can process signatures in a standard way and having the accounts rely on these verifiers feels like the correct approach. The advantage that once the verifier is deployed, any key can be represented using a verified or key pair without requiring setup cost. Can be given to control a smart account, perform such. Okay. I swear I just read that. Where'd that go? Where signers are identified by their address to a new model, or signers may not have an address and are identified by a bytes object. This definition is backwards compatible with EOA and 1271 contracts. In that case, we use the address of the identity, the EOA contract as the verifier, and the key is empty. Okay. Okay, keys are represented using bytes objects of arbitrary length. For example, if P256 or RSA public key, keys must not be empty. Okay. Okay. Verifiers are smart contracts in charge of verification for a given type of key. They have an Ethereum address. Okay. Verifiers must implement the following interface. Blah. Should return or revert. Okay. Verify statements. Rationale. Verifiers can be used to avoid deploying many ERC trusted in one identity contract. One per key, which would be expensive. Using this model, new keys could be used without any deployment costs. ERC 1271 already covers the keys for a key. It's not necessary to avoid ambiguity. The verifier's contract should not support or be expected to support empty keys. Settings that are 20 bytes long empty key should be handled using ERC 1271. Consistent with existing systems, EC requires a message to be bytes 32 hash. It's usually produced following ERC 191 or cryptographic systems that use different hash methods should see this hash as a message and possibly rehash it using the 511 standards. Okay. All right, that's reasonable. Just this comment here. All right. Moving on to ERC 6909. Okay. 6909. Yeah, I guess it doesn't tell me the pull request. Oh well. 6909. Okay. And then if we look at so I'm just looking at the history of this here. Yeah, okay. Um, okay. And the following system is multi-token contract is about alternative to the ERC 1155 multi-token standard. In contrast to ERC 1155, callbacks and batching have been removed from the interface. The permission system is a hybrid operator, approval scheme for granular and scalable permissions. Okay. Single operator permission scheme with some limited allowance of a token ID to the contract. Backwards compatibility is deliberately removed only where necessary. Additional features such as batch calls, increase and decrease allowance method. Deliberately, okay. According to ERC 1155, callbacks required for each transfer and batch transfer to a contract accounts. This requires potentially a necessary action of calls to the recipient when the recipient is a contract account. Less behavior may be desirable. Opt out this behavior as in addition to runtime performance of the contract token itself, it also impacts the runtime performance and code says recipient contract accounts require multiple callback functions to return values to receive tokens. Batching transfers were useful, or excluded from the standard to allow for opinionated batch transfer operations of different implementations. For example, a different ABI encoding may provide different benefits in different environments, such as call data says, yeah, okay, that's all good. ERC 6909 compliant contract must implement the Okay, 165 isn't required. It is. Caller. Yep. Spender. Operator. Okay, that looks fine. All right, two last call. 7857. AI agents. Nice. So good. AI agents with the private metadata. That's all good. Student interface for these AI agents with their metadata represents agent capabilities, requires privacy protection, unlike traditional NFT standards that focus on static metadata. The standard introduces mechanisms for verifiable data ownership and secure transfer. By defining a unified interface for different verification methods, TE, zero knowledge proofs. Okay. The increasing intelligence of AI models, agents have become powerful tools for automating meaningful daily tasks. The integration of agents with blockchain technology has been recognized as a major narrative in the crypto industry, with many projects enabling agent creation for their users. However, a crucial missing piece is the centralized management of agent ownership. AI agents possess inherent non-fungible properties that make them natural candidates for NFT representation. And agents embody clear ownership rights. Mhm. Okay. This looks like a correctly formatted proposal. Um, I'm really not sure how useful a proposal like this is going to be, but we'll see. It's not really my place as an editor to determine that, but yeah, 7656. And move the proposal to last call. All right. Federalized contract link services. Define a factory for generic services linked to contract type, including smart accounts and NFTs. All right. So first thing, we need to bump that up by 2 weeks. It's correct. So that'll be October 7th. 10, 7. Okay. This proposal defines a factory capable of deploying generic services linked to specific contracts, such as ESC 4337 accounts or 721 tokens. Usually services extend the functionalities of the target contract operating under the ownership of the contract's or NFT's owner without requiring modifications to the original contract's code. As a secondary effect, this proposal helps fighting. Um, Existing projects that token-bound accounts successfully bind smart accounts to NFTs, allowing registries to deploy accounts under specific token IDs. However, these states have two key limitations. They often require deploy contracts to implement specific interfaces for handling assets and executing transactions, effectively mandating that deployed contract must function as an account, or they are restricted to NFTs. For many other contract types, particularly 4337 accounts, can benefit from similar linking mechanisms to extend their functionalities. CRC approach a more versatile factory specification that enables the deployment of proxies pointing to any contract that enhances the associated contract's capabilities, whether it's an NFT or an account contract. Deploy a social recovery mechanism linked to an existing 4337 wall that can restore access to credentials. Okay. Okay, interface is defined as follows. Okay.
All right, Sam, I know you have less time today. I would request you to maybe kindly go to the force merge section. Maybe we can pick up a couple of um, PRs from there because review might take longer.
Sure.
And we are joined by Frangio. This PR is from him in case you have any question.
Okay. So what are we doing here?
I can give some context if it's useful.
Yeah, sure.
The issue that I was having is that in an EIP, I wasn't able to link to an ERC that was added post-split. And that is because one of these checks, I think the validator runs without first merging the ERC's repo back into this repo. And so it doesn't find the file.
Oh, that's interesting. But it
Yeah,
does for
so
the publish, right? Yeah.
Yeah, looking at this, I found that it is merging for other steps. So I just pulled that out into a shared action, and which is what you see there on screen, and
Yep.
then added the missing merge into the check.
Yeah, I think this makes sense. I will just go over this a little bit in more detail after I hop off this call. But yeah, I think this makes
Sure.
sense. Cool. Yeah, thanks so much.
No worries. Yeah. I'll hop off then.
Cool. Appreciate it. Yeah, thanks everybody. I'm gonna take care of this pull request offline. So thanks for coming out, and see you the next time I'm hosting one of these.
Thank
Take
you
care.
so much, Sam. Thank you everyone for joining. Have a great rest of the day. Bye-bye.
Right. Thank you.
you.